don't confuse peace for comfort. Let's talk about it. So peace and comfort are not the same thing. A lot of times, especially in Christian spiritual spaces, they are confused. You'll hear a lot of people be like, oh man, if God is leading, like you should feel, at peace and everything should be just fine. Everything should be good. And even though sometimes people use the word peace, they give it the definition of comfort. And they're not the same thing, because comfort, like, we live in a society where everything is pushing to be comfortable. And sometimes, like, comfort does not produce growth. And oftentimes we confuse the idea of being comfortable and there's nothing, my feathers are not being ruffled, nothing's going wrong, everything is just nice and going right. We confuse that with peace of our soul and peace of mind and a clean conscience. And they're not the same thing, because you can have peace of mind, genuine peace, peace with God, clean conscience, and be uncomfortable. And the opposite is true. You could be very comfortable, have money, everything's going just fine circumstantially, and you have no peace. And so what's interesting is, I want to read one verse, but there's a whole bunch on it, is that biblically, peace and comfort are not the same thing. So Jesus told his disciples right before he was going to go to the cross, this is in John 16:33, he's trying to encourage them, and he says, these things I've spoken unto you, that in me you might have peace, right? So he's telling them, I want you to have peace. And then here's the next phrase, in the world you will have tribulation, but be of good cheer, I've overcome the world. So he already just prefaces it. He's saying, I'm telling you these things so that you can be at peace. And then he says, you're going to have trials. In other words, things are going to happen, circumstances are going to happen, persecution is going to happen. But then he's saying, be happy. I've overcome the world. And so you see in the Christian experience, like in followers of Jesus, their lives were often massively uncomfortable. I mean, you depend on the circumstance. You have people like Daniel, Joseph, Abraham, Job that were rich and, were comfortable sometimes. But then oftentimes the comfort switched. Job was comfortable, rich, everything was great. Then he lost it all. Daniel was, in government, he was doing great. He had money, he was comfortable. And then they threw him in a lion's den because he wanted to be faithful to God. Joseph was kind of the opposite. He was extremely uncomfortable. And then, God elevated him. But the point is, we often confuse peace with comfort. And especially sometimes in the spiritual realm, we are just like, oh, if it comes from God, then you should be at peace. But again, we give the connotation, the definition, or the impression that if it's from God, everything's going to work just smoothly. And I hate to break it to you, but biblically, that's not the case. Oftentimes, if it's from God, the devil is really going to be mad. He's going to fight it a ton. But what Jesus said there, and what God is saying that you see in the Bible, is even though you will have a bunch of trials, God will always win. God is going to overcome. He's going to win. He'll take care of you. And whatever happens, just trust him. He's going to work it out. And so the peace that Jesus talks about, the peace that's in the Bible, is not a peace that's dependent on circumstance. And that's what I think is so precious about it, is any rich person can give you comfort, right? Just buy you some stuff and remove any stresses you have of circumstances. But God, and what we see in the Bible, is he's the only one that can give us genuine peace of mind, of things that can actually heal the soul and heal our mind. And you can sleep at night in peace. And I think that's the beauty of what we find in the Bible. But it's also important to clarify the difference, because oftentimes, God will ask us to do things that feel uncomfortable. We like it later. It pays off later. We're happy for it later. But in the moment, it's highly uncomfortable. And we have no idea what's going to happen. And it's scary and crazy and doesn't make sense. But God is like, do it. I mean, Israel at the Red Sea. And you have crossing through the Jordan. And you have Jesus' disciples being persecuted. And most of them being martyrs. Almost all of them being martyrs. So God often calls us to do things that are uncomfortable. But he will give us internal peace in the process. And it's important to clarify, because if you confuse the two and think that God is trying to give you a comfortable life, you're going to be disappointed. But the other thing is, what we really seek as human beings, we don't want comfort. Like, genuinely deep down, we don't want comfort. What I mean by that is, what gives genuine satisfaction and like where you're proud of yourself is where you have overcome challenges. Like, you're not proud of yourself for sleeping in for 11 hours, right? Like, I get it, sometimes you're gonna sleep in or whatever, okay, but you're not like, oh man, I'm proud of myself, I just laid on the couch for 3 hours. You're proud of yourself because I got up and went to the gym, right? I got up and cleaned my house. Like we're proud of ourselves, or we're, encouraged and are fulfilled by doing things that are uncomfortable. It's just society and part of our, sinful human nature. We have this internal struggle where true fulfillment comes from doing things that are uncomfortable and that will give us real peace. And part of us just wants to be lazy and to just chill. And so recognizing the difference is God is not in the business of making lazy people. I mean, you can see it in so many Bible stories. God, even though he can provide and certainly make our lives comfortable, he doesn't many times, because we need to learn certain lessons. And so there's a bunch of different examples. One of them that I think is pretty powerful is in the book of Exodus and Deuteronomy, and you kind of compare the Israelites leaving and God providing for them with manna for 40 years straight. He worked this miracle to provide food for them because they were in the desert. But as soon as they got into Canaan, that manna stopped, because now they were to grow their own food. And so God, worked a miracle because they were in a situation where they couldn't do it. But once they could grow, he's like, hey, my providence is now the energy and the ability and the opportunity for you to work. And so anyways, there's a lot more that could be said on this. You can talk about this for hours, but I think it's just important to clarify in our own minds and also in the way we speak that peace and comfort are not the same thing. And when we mix them, the reason why it could be dangerous is we can be disappointed, because then we start to, in a pursuit of peace and in a pursuit of doing what God wants us to do, if we have the idea that peace and God's way is going to be comfortable, we're going to shy away from the things he actually calls us to do. Because again, he calls us to do things that are often uncomfortable, but he promises that he will give us the strength to endure it. So that verse I read at the beginning, John 16:33, he says, I'm telling you this so that in me you might have peace. What's coming is going to be tough, but don't worry, I've already beat it. I've overcome the world. So whatever you're going to go through, I'm going to give you the power and the strength to get through it. That's where your source of peace is me, is God, is Christ. But it's not going to be comfortable. And so, yeah, hope this helps. Hope this clarifies something in your mind, that peace and comfort are not the same thing. What God actually wants is genuine growth. There's genuine fulfillment and development of character. And if you saw another video I posted about the one thing you need to do to get in shape, that doesn't just apply to fitness, that applies to spiritual life and character and everything else. And you can check out that video. But yeah, this part about getting out of comfort and moving forward is a key part that you see in the Bible. And peace and comfort are not the same thing. So hope that helps. Hope that clarifies. If you feel like somebody needs this video and has that confusing definitions in their own mind, send them this. And hopefully it'll bless them too. God bless. See you guys next time.